How's everyone doing today? It's your boy JJ Domination, and yesterday was a big day in the Madden community. All of the Madden 20 ratings officially came out yesterday, and some of the superstar X factors for certain players also came out. Yesterday was a very important day in the community because obviously ratings came out, which means we got to do our bitching and moaning, and if you think it's gonna stop there, boy, we got some more for you. Today we're going to be doing the most overrated player for each team in Madden 20 based on their rating. So I think the official title is going to be most overrated Madden 20 rating for each team. So we picked one player. For some it was very hard. I think the lowest overall is a 76 overall, which you'll figure out which team has that later. And like I said, I had to nitpick for a few of the teams because it was just kind of hard to figure out an overrated player. To me, there are a lot more underrated players than overrated in this year's Madden. So the underrated list, which I will be doing soon, it's going to be a little interesting, a lot more interesting. There are going to be a ton of guys you could put as notable mentions. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Starting with the Chicago Bears, the most overrated Madden 20 rating for me from the Chicago Bears is Trey Burton at an 87 overall. Now, he is a pretty good tight end. I would say maybe top 10 tight end in the game, but he's rated as like the 5th or 6th best tight end in football. That does not correlate with me. He is tied with guys like Jared Cook, who I think are just flat out better than him. And I think Eric Ebron is rated either as the same or below him, and Eric Ebron was one of the best 4 tight ends in the NFL last season, outside of, your usual suspects, Travis Kelce, Zach Ertz, and that man George Kittle. So Trey Burton, for me, the rating that I would have given him, maybe around an 83, 84. I just think 87 is too high for a guy like him. For the Cincinnati Bengals, we got another tight end who is going to be on the most overrated. That is Tyler Eifert. Now, I think Tyler Eifert is a good player. Don't get me wrong. But he's never healthy. And if you're not healthy, you shouldn't be rated that high, because the injury rating should be like a solid 7 for Tyler Eifert. But Tyler Eifert definitely is talented. I just think he's overrated, in Madden, because he's just never healthy. He's a talented player, yes, but he's not on the field. So how can you say he's the 5th best tight end in the game if he's never available, or the 4th or 5th best wherever he was ranked? Next up, we got the Buffalo Bills. This was a tricky one, because there's about, I think a lot of their players are being underrated by Madden. They have like the 3rd lowest team rating on launch, and it's going to be Cole Beasley with an 83 overall. I think 83 is somewhat fair. I would have probably just given him an 82, which is really just nitpicking. Like I said, it was a very hard one because I think there are a lot of players that are being severely underrated on the Buffalo Bills. So I just went with Cole Beasley. I couldn't really think of anyone who deserved to be deemed as overrated. For the Denver Broncos, we have Emmanuel Sanders at an 88 overall. I would have given Emmanuel Sanders like an 85. I just think that was a little too high for me personally, but he is a good player nonetheless. Nothing more I could really say there. For the Cleveland Browns, this was a very tough one as well, so I decided to go with Demarius Randall at an 86 overall. He kind of had a rebound year, and he was able to get out of Green Bay and be put in a better situation, which is always great for the player. You should commend players for taking advantage of a fresh start. He did have a great year. I just don't think he's one of the 7 best free safeties, or just safeties period, in football. So I'm going to have to take Demarius Randall as an overrated player in Madden. Now we are on to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I'm going to go with DeMar Dotson. He is an 88 overall, which is like the 3rd or 4th highest right tackle in football, and I think overall it's like somewhere in the top 10. DeMar Dotson's a fine player. He didn't really show me that he was that good. I would have given him like an 84, 85, but not bad, I suppose. Could be a lot worse. For the Arizona Cardinals, we have Terrell Suggs. He is an 83 overall, which I will say is higher than Chandler Jones, who he's probably going to be on that underrated list for me when we talk about the Cardinals. But Terrell Suggs, he's a fine player. He's going to go down as a Hall of Famer. He is one of the, best pass rushers the Ravens have ever had, but he really ain't an 83 overall at this stage of his career. I would say now he's like a 77, 76. And that's no offense to him. For the Chargers, we have Melvin Gordon. I know this is like the third time I've shit on Melvin Gordon since his agent came out or whatever and said, you know, we're holding out, you can trade me or get the deal done. I ain't trying to shit on Melvin Gordon, but let's just look at the running back rankings. He is 4th overall wise when it comes to the running back position. I think he's a top 10 back, but I think he's a hell of a lot closer to 10 than he is 5 or even number 1 for that matter. So I would have ranked Melvin Gordon at like an 89 to a 90. I just think there are running backs like Saquon, Kamara, McCaffrey. They're all under him in terms of overall. Those are guys I would definitely have over. I would start to consider Devontae Freeman even to be over Melvin Gordon. Or at least the same overall, I would say, for now. But that's just a very interesting one. For the Kansas City Chiefs, we have Kendall Fuller, who is an 87 overall. He's a fine nickel corner. He's actually an above-average nickel corner, but I just think this is a little ridiculous. I'd have gave Kendall Fuller like an 83 overall. I just think 87 is too high, personally, for him. For the Indianapolis Colts, this was tough, you know, another nitpicking situation. I thought they did a good job with the Colts overall. With the ratings, could argue for some guys to be higher, but I will say Devin Funch is at an 80 overall. I think that is slightly overrated because I don't think he's ever been, like, that good. He will have a chance to prove himself on a 1-year deal with the Colts, but you know, for now I just think he's slightly overrated. For the Dallas Cowboys, you could have put about 7 or 8 guys on here. I did consider Tyron Smith. I also considered Sean Lee, but I ended up going with Jason Witten, who was basically coming off the couch, or in this case coming out of the broadcasting booth to come and return the football as a tight end. And he's an 83 overall, which puts him over guys like David Njoku and Dallas Goedert, which I think is ridiculous. Jason Witten, to me, should have been like a 76 overall. The fact that he's even this high of a rating, it is clearly just a legacy award, you know, a legacy rating, which I think is ridiculous. You know, like, Jason Witten should not be that highly rated. I don't care, and I think Cowboys fans ought to agree, but of course they're not, and they're not going to complain either because he's a high overall. For the Miami Dolphins, this is kind of sad because this is their best player, overall-wise, or tied for their best player, but I think his rating's a little overrated, and I'm talking about Kenny Stills. He's an 84 overall. Yeah, the Dolphins are literally the worst team in the game, and I think their offensive rating is like a 69 or a 68, which is just, it's wild. But Kenny Stills, to me, is more of like an 80 to 81 overall receiver. I really don't think he's as good as Madden hypes him up to be, but it's fine, I guess. That's just nitpicking. For the Philadelphia Eagles, I actually liked most of their ratings. I think they have a few more underrated players than overrated, but I decided to put Nelson Aguilar on this list. I think he is slightly overrated, not only by Eagles fans, but by the NFL. I think he's more of like an 80 overall receiver. There are receivers who will definitely be on the underrated list who they're better than Nelson Aguilar, and I don't even think that's up for discussion. The San Francisco 49ers not San Francisco, the Atlanta Falcons most overrated player. And Madden, geez, that was a hard sentence. The Atlanta Falcons most overrated player in Madden 20 overall wise, I would say, has to be Desmond Trufant at an 88 overall. I did consider, you know, a few other players like Keanu Neal, who was hurt. You know, he's an 88 overall. Austin Hooper, not that it's his fault. You know, I think 85 is a good rating, but it's the fact that, you know, like O.J. Howard and Evan Ingram are below him. I don't know. It's just kind of weird. But I went with Desmond Trufant. I don't think he's one of the best corners in the NFL. He's fine, but let's just call it like it is. He's not one of the best. Speaking of one of the best, the 49ers most overrated player in Madden, I would have to say, is Richard Sherman at a 93. He is the 3rd highest ranked corner in the game. I think Richard Sherman's good. I would have given him like an 87, but a 93, I mean, come on, man. That's a legacy rating. The New York Giants, Jags, they have the lowest rating in terms of an overrated player for me, and that's Rhett Ellison, who is a 76 overall. He's just more of a glorified blocking tight end. He's nothing special. He shouldn't even be a 76 overall. He should be like a 72, 73. Like, I don't really understand how he's so highly rated. He's nothing special athletically in an athletic-based video game, so I don't really know where that rating comes from. For the Jacksonville Jaguars, we have Jake Ryan, who is a 78 overall. Now, of course, the last time he played was just about 2 seasons ago with the Green Bay Packers, and I believe he was like a 79 overall. I would have gave Jake Ryan about a 75 overall. I think that's a sweet spot for him. 78 to me just seems too high. He hasn't played in 2 years. And it's not like he was a Le'Veon Bell type of talent either at his position, middle linebacker. So to me, that's just overrated. For the New York Jets, Avery Williamson's at 85 overall. I did consider C.J. Mosley, who's a 87, but let's be honest, C.J. Mosley is more deserving of that rating than Avery Williamson is as an 85. Avery Williamson is a fine middle linebacker. I don't really have anything too bad to say. I would personally have just given him like an 83 overall, maybe an 82. I just feel like 85 is a little too high. For the Detroit Lions, we got Marvin Jones here at an 86. I don't think he's the best receiver on his team. I would confidently say, as a Packer fan who watches, the Detroit Lions a lot, I would say Kenny Golladay is the number 1 receiver on that team. Marvin Jones, to me, just rated too highly. I mean, I would have probably given Marvin Jones like an 82 overall, which isn't even too bad, but I would have just made Kenny Golladay the highest rated receiver on that team. For the Green Bay Packers, most overrated player in Madden, I'm going to have to go with Brian Bulaga. In my opinion, I don't think Brian Bulaga's that good anymore. He's rated at an 85 overall. I would have made him like a 77, like heavy regression, because he's just not that good. He's not that quick anymore. I understand Pro Football Focus has him graded highly for some reason, which is, like I said, I don't really take Pro Football Focus into account that much, but he's like one of the top 10 right tackles pass blocking wise, and he's one of the top 10 left tackles in the game, and I strongly disagree. I don't think he should be up there. Injuries, of course, the injury rating should have brought him down as well. It is what it is. Speaking of injured, the Carolina Panthers most overrated player, Greg Olsen, 89 overall. He is a very good tight end when healthy. However, he's never healthy. He's another foot injury away from, being a commentator at this point. So I just think an 89 overall for him is too high. I think giving him maybe an 83 would be more justifiable, but, he got an 89. It is what it is. A nice little legacy rating. For the New England Patriots, they were a hard team to really come up with one, so I just decided Demaryius Thomas at an 82. Health concerns recently. He's also been cut by a team. The Houston he wasn't cut by the Texans. They just didn't bring him back, I think. I can't remember that situation, but to me, Demaryius Thomas is not that good per se. I think a 78 overall rating would have been nice. Maybe a 79, but as an 82, I don't really think so. He's not the second best receiver on this team, or the third best, I should say, because Josh Gordon's technically on the game still at an 83. But Demaryius Thomas, to me, is not the third best receiver on this team. I can confidently say, even though he's unproven and his rating's a lot lower, I can confidently say N'Keal Harry's wide receiver number 3 in terms of being, on the depth chart overall wise for Madden. For the Oakland Raiders, I went with Doug Martin. They were a hard one to come up with. I thought everyone was rated fairly for that team. You could nitpick here and there, but Doug Martin's a 78 overall. I don't think he's that good. He should have been like a 74 where Josh Jacobs is. I really don't think he's that good anymore. He had one great season, and he's been kind of riding off that one great season in Tampa Bay. So I really don't think he's that good. No offense, but the Duggernaut, not for me, fam. For the Los Angeles Rams, this was a little bit of a tricky one as well. I think everyone's rated somewhat fairly, but I went with Clay Matthews. He's a 78 overall. I'm not hating on Clay Matthews because he left our team, believe me, but Dante Fowler is a 77 overall. He's 1 overall point lower than Clay Matthews, who they're both listed as right outside linebackers. And the thing about that is, I can confidently say, as a guy who watched the Packers play a lot, watched the Rams a lot as well, I can confidently say that Dante Fowler, on a team that has Aaron Donald, or a team that had Aaron Donald, of course, and Ndamukong Suh, Michael Brockers, I can confidently say that Dante Fowler Jr. had more of an impact on his team than Clay Matthews did on the 6-9-1 Packers. I can confidently say that. But yet Clay Matthews gets the nod overall-wise. I think that's a little whack. Either flip the ratings or just make Clay Matthews... Or, no, not Clay Matthews. Just make Dante Fowler Jr. higher, or just flip the ratings. For the Baltimore Ravens, I went with Michael Pierce. He's a 92 overall. I think Michael Pierce is a fine player, but Brandon Williams, who I would say is very similar and pretty close to him, is an 86 overall. Michael Pierce is one of those players that I was pretty confident in that he would end up having a good career, and he has. And he's also one of the best run stoppers in the league. However, I don't think there's that much of a gap between him and Brandon Williams in terms of run defense. But Michael Pierce did get the nod. I just think he's slightly overrated. I'd have made him an 89. That's about it. For the Washington Redskins, Jordan Reed, he is an 88 overall. Similar to a lot of other tight ends we've talked about. He's just never healthy. Whether I like him or not, that's not important. I just think he's being slightly overrated. For the New Orleans Saints, they were a tough one. I think they have a couple of more underrated players than overrated. But I did decide to go with Cameron Meredith, who's a 79 overall. He had one decent season, or a slightly above average season, for the Chicago Bears, and he's never really played since then. And he's like the team's third best wide receiver, and in real life, I don't think, even if he is healthy, he is the third best wide receiver on the New Orleans Saints. So, a little bit of a hot take right there, I suppose. For the Seattle Seahawks, a very tough one as well. I think they're more underrated than overrated. You could make an argument for Chris Carson being overrated, but he did have a breakout season last year. So, Madden's rewarding him for that. I'm not really too mad about it. But I am going to go with Shaquille Griffin. He is an 80 overall, the cornerback for the Seahawks. I don't really think he's that good. He should be like a 77. I just don't think he's that good. The Pittsburgh Steelers, this was a tough one, but I went with Alejandro Villanueva, the left tackle. He is a 86 overall. I would have probably rated him at like an 83. I just don't think he's as good as people are making him out to be. He's a fine left tackle. He gets the job done, but I just think he's being slightly overrated by Madden. For the Houston Texans, I went with Lamar Miller. He is an 85 overall. I never really thought, aside from those couple years in Miami, I just never thought he was a good running back. And surprise, surprise, he's really not that good of a running back. But yet the Texans have not done anything to really replace him other than draft a bunch of guys in the mid to late rounds. And those guys don't even play. So I'm just not huge on Lamar Miller. For the Tennessee Titans, we went with Delaney Walker, 92 overall tight end. I think when healthy, he is a top 5 tight end, no doubt about it. But I had to punish other tight ends for not being healthy, like Tyler Eifert and Jordan Reed and Greg Olsen. So I have to be consistent. I have to give Delaney Walker that harsh criticism as well. So, I got to keep it consistent. I got to keep the same energy, as the kids say. And then finally, for the Minnesota Vikings, most overrated for me, Stephon Diggs at a 93 overall. I think he's a very good receiver. I don't think there are some guys under him overall wise, like Devontae Adams, Mike Evans, Keenan Allen. I think all those guys are better than Stephon Diggs, but yet Diggs gets the nod for Madden at a 93 overall. I just don't agree with that at all. He is a very good player, but there are receivers ranked below him who deserve to be either higher than him or he needs to be lower. But that's just my take on Stephon Diggs. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed, though. We will be doing our underrated list soon. And the underrated list is definitely going to be interesting because you could argue that there are like 3 or 4 players for every team. But obviously I'm not going to have enough time to sit here and explain for all of those guys why they deserve it over so-and-so. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed. Do not forget to leave a like down below. It helps get exposure on the video. Comment some players who you thought were overrated that I didn't talk about in terms of Madden ratings. And yeah, I will see you next time. Peace.